perhaps I should say bonjour, as this recording is coming to you from France, where we're going to be taking a look at the minor 2-5-1 chord progression. Well, we're already familiar with the 1 chord and the 5 chord in minor keys, but let's briefly remind ourselves how those go. So returning to our familiar natural minor scale, here we are in the key of A minor. Our 1 chord contains the notes 1, 3 and 5. Forming a minor triad. Our 5 chord, remember the notes 5, 7 and 9 would give us another minor triad, but for the reasons explained in the last video, I'm choosing to substitute that minor triad with a major triad, giving us the sequence 5 major, 1 minor. In our example key of A minor, that would give us E major to A minor. So this just leaves us with the 2 chord to find. So returning again to the natural minor scale, we take the notes 2, 4 and 6. Which gives us this triad chord. Now your ear should be telling you straight away there's something a little different about this chord as compared to the minor and major triads we've encountered previously. So let's have a little look at the intervals in this chord and see what's different about it. Well, firstly, from the 2 to the 4 of the scale, we have our familiar minor third interval. So this is obviously a minor triad of some sort. But what's different about it is this interval from the notes 2 to 6 of the scale. We can see, if we compare this with our familiar perfect fifth interval, we have an interval here 1 semitone less. So what do we call this interval? We've said previously that the 5th interval is considered a perfect interval, that's to say it's neither major nor minor. So if we reduce it by a semitone, that's to say we flatten it, we can't call it a minor 5th. So the term we use is diminished. If we take a perfect interval and reduce it by a semitone, we get a diminished interval. So here we have a diminished 5th. So our new triad chord consists of a minor third and a diminished 5th. Creating the chord. Now there are a few different things we could call this chord. We could call it a minor diminished 5th. We could simply call it a diminished triad. I'm going to stick with the term minor flat 5. Firstly, this I think describes as simply as possible and in the fewest syllables how this chord is constructed, and also avoids using the term diminished, which could be a potential source of confusion when we come to talk about fully diminished chords later on in this series. So for the moment, this is a minor flat 5 triad. So our minor key 2-5-1 progression now consists of a 2 minor flat 5, a 5 major, and a 1 minor. In the key of A minor, this gives us a B minor flat 5, E major, and A minor. Our B minor flat 5 we can play on the middle 4 strings in this position here. And there is our completed 2-5-1 chord progression in A minor. Well, the subject of this series is of course common chord progressions, so it's perhaps worth mentioning that the triad form of the minor flat 5 chord is not actually encountered that frequently in guitar music. You're far more likely to meet the 7th chord version, that's to say the minor 7 flat 5 chord, which we will be coming to very shortly when we get to our discussion on 7th chords. The minor flat 5 triad is also not a particularly guitar friendly chord, that's to say there aren't that many comfortable and convenient fingerings for it. So given these two facts, you may think, well, why not just miss it out altogether? We'll deal with the minor 7 flat 5 chord when we come to it, and just ignore this minor flat 5 triad. Personally, I would always recommend that you learn as many chords as possible, and in all keys and in as many positions and voicings as possible. Not only does this increase your overall chord repertoire, but the playing of chords in more awkward fingerings will help to develop the dexterity and flexibility of your fingers, which will pay off in all manner of ways in terms of your overall playing ability. Okay, one last thing I'd like to say about this 2 minor flat 5 chord is that this is the equivalent chord of the 7 chord in the relative major key. So this means we've now completed the harmonisation of the major and natural minor scales. That is to say, for every note of the scale, we've constructed a triad chord using that note as the chord root. And this is a topic we'll be returning to after we've taken a look at the final triad chord sequence in our set, which is to say the 6-2-5-1 chord progression in minor keys. That will be the topic of our next video, and I look forward to seeing you then.